morning, good evening, and welcome everyone joining us from all over the world. Today on the Glow by Heartfulness webinar, which is an acronym for Genuine Loving Outstanding Women, we have a very special guest, and this is a very special webinar. Glow's mission is to compassionately empower women through the tool of meditation, because as we all know, solutions are to be birthed in our hearts. We focus on creating a support system for women. Thereby, they can navigate life's challenges and strive to become the best version they can be in their personal and professional lives. Each webinar offers an introduction to heartfulness relaxation and meditation, with follow-on instructions to continue the practice. Heartfulness meditation is present in over 130 plus countries with thousands of certified trainers and volunteers. We teach heart-based meditation, where we meditate on the light and love in the heart, in the presence of yogic transmission or pranahti. So as I said, today we have a very special webinar and a very special speaker catering to young girls and boys who aspire to serve our country. So let me introduce our keynote speaker. Ruchi Vardhan was born in a small district, Satna in Madhya Pradesh. She studied with a wonderful background in yoga, Sanskrit, and music. Her father was a professor in economics and her mother was a professor in Hindi. She grew up in a very academic atmosphere and erudite background with a lot of exposure to books and other academic memorabilia. So Ruchi Vardhan did her graduation from Jabalpur. She graduated in geography, music, and Sanskrit. She went on and did her post-graduation from JNU, and she studied geography as a major in JNU. After her post-graduation in her UPSC exam, she stood as 67th in the national rank. And then after 2 years of her training, she was a topper of her 2006 batch. It's a great honor, privilege, and it's wonderful to have you over with us, Ms. Ruchi Vardhan. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Mr. Purnima. Thank you very much. I'm blessed to be a part of this webinar and being in the center stage. It's an honor and privilege for me to be here. Thank you.
To listen to such words is just touching our hearts so much. So we have three young, wonderful, inspiring girls with us today. We have Asta, we have Vidhi, we have Soumya. So all three of them are aspiring to be civil servants just like you, and they are the panelists for today's webinar. Before we begin the webinar, I would like to know from Ruchi Vardhan, what was your inspiration behind this career?
This is a very common and very tricky question for me, because honestly speaking, I was quite a good student throughout, like from my KG1 to 12th, I guess. I don't think that maybe leaving one class, I think I stood first in almost all the standards, all classes. And so it came naturally to me that this was in my mind, that I do whatever I do or I pursue, I'll do good in that stream. So when there was a time when I had to opt for subjects from my 11th and 12th standard, then my father guided me that since you are good in academics, so I'm sure that you'll do good in whatever stream you opt for. But then my grandfather was a civil servant. He retired as a member PSC Madhya Pradesh. So he was a very honest, upright man. He had he had earned a very good name, Sri Ram Bihari Lal Srivastava. So my father said that since the civil services give you a very challenging platform to serve people, to serve your country. So when you are good at academics, so I think you can explore this option and you can try to utilize your potential here. And being a very docile and disciplined child at that time, and being very normal, I mean, I don't think had it been just on me, I don't think that I would have pursued this. Maybe I would have gone into engineering or medical or something like that. But I remember that everything was equal for me. So I took his advice sincerely, that okay, if everything is equal, let me try my hands on this. So we decided, like my father and myself, we decided that I'll take maths, physics and chemistry as my 11th and 12th standard options major, and then I'll switch over to art subjects. which was like subjects. I'll choose only those subjects which I am going to take in my civil services, because that time there used to be two optionals that one has to choose. So we did a little survey. We met some civil servants, serving officers, and some academicians, and then discussed about the options, like which options to take, which are more scoring ones. And then for my graduation, I opted for geography and Sanskrit, aiming that these would be my subjects in UPSC also, which later I opted for UPSC as well. So I mean, there was a guidance by my father, but when I joined JNU and I was pursuing my PG course, then after doing that PG course, since I was in love of books, and I used to love the library and learn. Reading was my passion, actually. So at that time, at one point of time, I had this choice to make, whether I want to go into academics or I want to go for civil services. There, I directly spoke to my grandfather, and I spoke to him, and he guided me that civil services gives you a lot of opportunity to serve in various capacities, to interact directly with people, and if you feel that you have potential, you can utilize that potential in a very challenging environment to the best of your capabilities. While in academics, you might do some very good research, but then the scope wise, civil services give you a better platform. So then I consulted, in a way, I consulted my own heart. Like, whenever we are faced with certain questions in our life, it's good to take advice, or to discuss things with your elders, with your mentor, with your teachers or friends, and everybody around whom you deem fit. But then when there is a moment, when there is the key moment when you have to move on that path of your choice, then I think one should consult one's heart. And I in a way, I thought over the discussion that I had with my grandfather, with my friends, with myself, like that. And then I decided that yes, I should, because there was one question at times, amongst youth, there is then this question that this dilemma before entering into civil services, that there is so much of corruption, there is so much of wrong factors influencing your performance in the services, and then how would you take upon those challenges, and whether that field itself is good to enter into or not. So that time, even I had this question that the environment where civil service officers operate is very very kind of challenging, very lots of pulls and pressures and influences. I should see that whether I would be able to survive in this or not. So I think that was it. I mean, it was quite plain and simple because of my father and my grandfather's advice. But then I think finally I decided with my own heart that yes, I should challenge myself to come into this side as to whether I wish to continue here or not.
Thank you so much, Ruchi ma'am. So we have three young girls here with us. We have Soumya Shukla, we have Vidhi Kumar, and we have Asta Singh. Soumya Shukla is born in Kanpur. She's completed her education from Uttar Pradesh. She's a graduate of 2020 in Bachelor of Arts Honors from Alliance University in Bangalore. She's currently a lawyer by profession, and she's aspiring she's an aspiring candidate of UPSC and Judicial Services. So Soumya, tell me, why are you interested in this? Why are you aspiring to be a UPSC candidate?
First of all, thank you for having me in this webinar. It is such a privilege to be talking to Ruchi ma'am. And since I was a little girl, I have always seen the life of my father and the stories of his father about how they justified and they lived their life as civil servants. And I had the privilege of actually observing the firsthand experience of the impact an individual can make to the society, the contribution they can make, and the potential of a change maker, or the potential to help someone in the true means, was something that always inspired me for their role that they were playing. As well as I was one of the the happy child in the family, because my father always could maintain that professional and the work-life balance between it. And then when I grew up and I was started to discover myself and the little elements that I found about myself, the desires that I had, the urges that was from within me, and the things that I wanted to accomplish was simply like putting together a big jigsaw puzzle, and which ended up spelling out as civil services to me. So that is why I'm aspiring to be the UPSC aspirant today, to help the humanity how much ever I can to my extent, and to prolong the legacy of my dad and his father.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Soumya. It's quite inspiring to listen to your aspiration. We also have with us Vidhi Kumar. She's studying law from the National Law University in Odisha. She enjoys script coding, research, literature, and deliberations on the themes of life. This is very interesting about you, Vidhi.
Thank you very much, Purnima, for having me today. And it's really nice to meet you, Ruchi ma'am. So I was fortunate enough to encounter, I really call myself lucky that while Ruchi ma'am was training in Sagar for 24 days, I had an opportunity to observe her. My mother was posted there at that time. So when I saw her for the first time, I could realize that what is the difference between being an officer and being a leader. And that is what I wanted to be. And later, as I pursued my law degree, I came across the work of O.P. Chaudhary sir, who was working at that time as district collector in district magistrate in in Chhattisgarh. So the work that he had done for education, that inspired me that an opportunity to be a leader at such a young age is something that empowers people at a larger scale. Second thing, when I was pursuing my law degree, I had this attraction towards diversity while working. So this public services, they offer ample scope for intellectual growth for myself as well. So that is why I want to pursue civil services.
Thank you so much, Vidhi. That's very inspiring for me. The next participant which we have is Asta Singh. And it's my pleasure to introduce Asta as well. Asta tells me that she enjoys spending time in nature, and she's interested in economics, current affairs, vocabulary, historical events, and she volunteers and contributes to her community in so many ways. And she's preparing for UPSC since her 11th grade. She's currently a graduate student. And over to you, Asta. Tell me, why do you want to aspire to be a UPSC candidate?
Thank you, Purnima, for inviting me here as a panelist. And I'm so glad that I'm here with Ruchi ma'am and get a chance to meet her. So I want to be a UPSC aspirant or to be an IAS because I hope you all must be aware of the 2012 Nirbhaya case. She was brutally harassed and she's no more now. So at that time, I was in 5th or 6th standard when I came to know about it. I was shattered that what is this and why is everyone blaming her? I mean, she is also a human and she has the right to move anywhere at any time. And also, when people talk about her, they were like, why she move out? Why at that time, like at 10 p.m. or 11 p.m., why she move at that time? And she must wear like this, like that, and many other things. And at that time, I realized that this is something which we cannot change or we will not be able to stop by just sitting at home and discussing it with just few people and telling them what is right, what is wrong. That's not the way. And I realized that this is the time when we, the youngsters, who are the future generation, who are the who will gonna lead the country, who will be the future generation, have to take the lead. We have to take the lead. We can do this. We can when we go into the system and bring even if we bring 0.001% change in the society. I mean, I just wanna equality in the society. Like everyone should be aware, like everyone should aware of what a girl is. Like she's not a puppet where you can use it anytime or when she is in public, she's not a public property, but she is the responsibility of the people, of the nation, of everyone. So I just want that to be happen, and everyone should be treated equally because we all are equal. So yeah, that is the thing. Since that day, I want to be an IAS. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much, Asta. Very inspiring. I hope your dream comes true. So as we open up the questions for Ruchi, I hand over to Vidhi to ask the first question to Ms. Ruchi.
So, ma'am, my first question to you is that in recent times, especially during the pandemic, I realized one thing that the journey that we are in when we aspire for UPSC, most of the gains that we have are intangibles, and our lifestyle has become so different from our peers. So, how do we make changes within this lifestyle which can help us sustain during as well as after this particular lifestyle so that we stay inspired as well as motivated for endeavors in life?
Okay, thank you, Vidhi. This is a very good question, as it applies to both the times. Like during the pandemic, we faced certain crises, and even when it was not there, people aspiring for UPSC, they have to go through a very rigorous lifestyle, a very rigorous regime where lifestyle poses a challenge, and we have to be very cautious about how we should lead our lifestyle in a sustainable way that we can prepare for the services, and we can sustain the stress or the time period that is required for going through this entire regime, or I would say the ordeal in a way. So when I was preparing for UPSC, I had made up my mind that I would take it for at least two. I would give two best attempts. So as most of us know that UPSC exam for 1 year, UPSC exam for any year involves 1 full year of preparation and simultaneous exams like prelims, mains, and the interview. So it takes 1 complete year for the process itself, for that we opt for, that we choose for any year. So when I decided that I would give my 2 best attempts, so I counted that this would be complete 3 years module, like 2 years for the examination and 1 year maybe for the preparation. So for 3 years, if you are pursuing a particular aim to appear in civil services or to get through, then you have to maintain your lifestyle in a way that it is natural, it is sustainable, and it gives you a lot of strength and energy and sustainability over a period of time. So because when we are appearing for the exams, so most of the time our focus and the attention is very heavy, very focused on the reading, on preparing things. So most of the time we are sitting say for 10 hours, 12 hours. So we have to be very, like, we have to see that we have to be disciplined, because we have to start our preparation at particular time in the day, and we have to take it to the maximum number of hours for that particular day. So most of the time we are sitting and preparing. So we have to be healthy and fit in our body and in our mind. But then there comes a third factor of the stress also, because we are in the process, and we don't know what would happen, because it's a national level examination, very highly competitive, and there are lakhs and lakhs of people appearing for it. And people who go for it, they also have very high stakes, because you have probably left your job and started preparing for this, or maybe you have not even entered, and one doesn't know what is the financial background of the family of that aspirant also. So there are a lot of expectations from ourselves and from our family. The family also expects many things, that okay, once a person gets through, then this would happen or that would happen. Or if the person had the person not started preparing for civil services, then probably he or she would have gone for a job in a professional environment and would have started earning like that. So there are financial issues, there are mental stress, and your aspiration itself. So somewhere in that line, during that period, you need some spiritual strength as well. So your body, your mind, and your spirit, these all these three things need a lot of sustainability, some sustainable solution. So like I told Purnima earlier that since my childhood, I was interested in yoga and meditation. There was certain exposure to it while I was in my school. Later on, when I was pursuing my graduation, I was introduced to heartfulness, and then I started meditating, and I was doing yoga for my physical fitness. Some yogasan I was doing for my physical fitness. So that time I just took it very, lightly, that, okay, so this is something good, and one knows that meditation is good for your concentration, for your peace of mind. So I started doing it. But later on, as I started preparing for civil services, I realized that my physical fitness is of utmost important. Unless and until I am fit in my body, I will not be able to sustain this ordeal of sitting for, say, continuous long, many hours, 10 hours, 12 hours. And at the time of exams, you might have to sit for 15 hours. So I'll not sustain it if I am not healthy. And maybe for one day, for 1 month, for 2 months, 4 months, I might be able to put my entire energy into that. But for 3 years, for 2 years, for 1 complete year, if I am to maintain this schedule, then I have to be really fit. So one practice I did is like doing yogasans for almost 40 to 50 minutes, some basic asanas that helped me maintain my flexibility, my physical fitness. That was like a Bible for me, that I'll do this come what may. So I used to get up early, and in the terrace of my JNU hostel, I used to go and do yogasans in morning sunlight. So that helped me maintain my lightness and my flexibility. And then I was doing meditation also. So there's a practice of cleaning in heartfulness practices, which helps you in removing the impressions or the sanskars that we call in meditation, in this practice. These are the impressions that we gather from due to any external event or our thought or our actions. So we take certain impressions. So this cleaning helps us in removing those impressions. So during the evening time, I made it a point that I'll do my cleaning come what may. Even at times I missed my meditation sessions in the morning, but I did my cleaning in the evening, that I made sure. So these two things, I remember that these two things, one helped me maintaining in my physical fitness, and the second one helped me maintaining my peace of mind, this inner relaxed state. And due to this, I realized that I don't retain any kind of stress or tension in while I was doing all this preparation. And then for your spiritual well-being, I think this yoga and meditation both help us. So it did not only help me in maintaining my physical fitness, but also my clarity of mind and the impression free mind, I would say, and the strength of my spirit. So this helped me in doing this. And I'll tell you that at times there's a tendency as to, okay, yoga is something, meditation is something that most of the youths, they feel that, okay, I'm not comfortable doing all this, or this is for, say, some elderly people, or maybe this is for a particular kind of people. It's not for me, most of us. And then when you start experimenting with these things, you would realize that these things help you maintain your integrity, your inner balance, your inner strength and cheerfulness and happiness, kind of a thing. Because our mindset is one very key aspect while we prepare for civil services, because all the time we have this question whether I'll get through or not. If I don't get through, then what would happen? So if you don't maintain a positive mindset, and I'm telling you, it's not just for UPSC preparation. Like once you clear the exams, then life goes even challenging. Family, your job, your other responsibilities. So it's not but maintaining a positive mindset, a healthy lifestyle, spiritual or yogic practice that helps you rejuvenate yourself, that helps you realize your own energy, that helps you maintain your balance of mind, is an asset for you for any kind of crisis, including UPSC preparations. So this is what helped me. Maybe some people take help of music, or maybe gardening, or some hobby. But for me, this practice and yoga, they helped me a lot.
Ma'am, the next question I want to ask, that which is the perfect time to start adopting the fundamental learning techniques of UPSC preparation? For instance, making notes. Like, I'm always confused with that. So can you please help?
See, you can start preparing anytime. Like if you have fixed your goal that, okay, say maybe you are in 4th standard or in 6th standard, when you thought that, okay, I should take civil services as my aim, I should aspire to UPSC. So when your goal is fixed, then everything should align with that goal. So even if you are reading a comics also, you can, take something good out of this habit. Maybe you can even sitting at one place and reading for 2 hours, that may also help you in preparing for UPSC. So just be a little cautious, a little aware as to what all things you would need. Your heart guides you, what all things you would need to aspire for, to actually target your aim. So if you feel that, like you yourself know the answer, you feel that note taking is important, so you should start it. Like if in the 5th standard you realize this, you should start it from that very day. And if you feel that reading should be reading from diverse sources, or from improving your general awareness, or improving your handwriting, or maintaining speed of your handwriting, or maybe your communication skills, or maybe sitting for long hours, maybe maintaining a disciplined lifestyle where you make certain definite progress every day, and reading genuinely, studying genuinely. What I mean by studying genuinely, that at times it happens with lot many students, with lot many candidates, that we sit for 12 to 16 hours and we feel that, okay, I am studying or I am preparing. But then we have to see the outcome also. Are we really studying? Whether my focus is really on whether I'm genuine while I say that I'm studying. So for what exact hours of outcome I am making, I'm contributing to my studies, and what is the outcome of it. So one has to be very genuine with oneself. One can lie with your parents, one can lie to your friends, and that, okay, I'm studying for, most of the time students are in hostels or PGs. So they might say to their parents that, okay, I'm studying for 10 hours, I'm studying for 14 hours. But we know in our heart what we are doing when we are outside our homes, when we are going to a coaching, when we are preparing, when we are reading a book. Then what is the outcome? We always have to be focused on the outcome also, that, okay, I targeted for this much of, say, doing 2 chapters today. So whether my target was less or more, or a genuine one, and then where I am at the end of the day. So all these things, will help you in getting the desired outcome. And the moment you realize that this skill I have to learn, habit I have to develop, that is the moment when you should start for it, because everything should take us to that goal. Whatever I have fixed as my goal, then everything. If time management is very important, if you feel that I should save my time, so every day whenever we are seeing mobile, so we have to be cautious whether it is helping me to reach my goal, or it is diverting me to some useless activity, or maybe in the name of news, whether I'm wasting my time or I'm utilizing my time. So like, I'll just share you one of my experiences, my example, that I was from a Hindi background, like till my graduation, I was pursuing Hindi as my medium of language. And then when I entered JNU, then their mode of learning academics was in English, and I had to give UPSC. So there I had to decide whether I have to English medium for UPSC as well, or I have to give my exam in Hindi in UPSC. And there was no choice at my PG course, because the PG course was in English only. So there I decided that I should not get, be on 2 boards, riding the 2 boards, and I should be aligning my entire focus and my energy into one direction only. So because I was reading geography in English, and then for the same geography in UPSC exam, I wouldn't have been able to do it in Hindi. So I decided that, okay, I'll switch over to English. But then that was a challenge that appeared to that was in front of me when I was doing my PG course. So then I thought that, okay, there are 2 choices. Either you can blame your parents or your environment, or why they have put me in English Hindi medium school or Hindi medium, because I was very fond of my schooling, and I was very proud of my schooling, and very I felt that the schooling or whatever I did before my PG, that actually strengthened my my goal, or that strengthened my learning. So I had no regrets on that. But the only thing I thought at that time is that a child who is maybe in his or her kindergarten, and he or she enters into an English medium school, that particular child whose mother tongue is not English, they struggle at that moment. And I am pursuing, I have to make a choice now. So maybe I'll struggle at this moment. It's just a matter of difference in the age when I'm facing this struggle. So it's okay, I accept that struggle. Secondly, I thought that I should align all my preparation and all my energy into learning whatever is required for appearing in the civil services. So while I used to go to my center from my hostel, before that I used to listen to the Hindi news in All India Radio. That was for 15 minutes from say 8:30 to 8:45 a.m. That time I used to take my breakfast in the hostel mess while listening to the news, and then from 8:45 to 9 a.m. immediately thereafter there was English news, the same news which was in Hindi, that used to come in English. So that helped me in preparing for that that communication skills, that okay, one word is in Hindi, like pratyarpan sandhi they said in Hindi, and its extradition treaty in English. So that was a continuous learning, daily learning, that I listened to the Hindi news and then the English news. Then daily, another practice I introduced to improve my English was like making a regular 1-page note of some tricky words, some complicated words that I was not knowing from the newspaper reading. Maybe I was reading just a paragraph or 2, but then I was taking down notes of certain words that were quite common, but I was not very much aware of those. And then from English to English, I used to write their meaning also. And when I used to come back from my center to the hostel, then I used to just open my notebook, and I used to just refresh whatever I noted down in the morning. So this was a continuous habit. So for 365 days, if you make very small efforts but on a consistent and continuous basis, then that will help you in doing that. Then thirdly, my roommate was a Keralite. She was not knowing Hindi, and I was very with English. So we decided the room will only speak in English. So I learned you put hair in my oil, how to express this. I mean, I was knowing ki baal mein tel lagana, and how to do that. So this very day-to-day communication in English. So I learned from her. And later on, after 2 years, she started interacting in Hindi only. I started interacting in English only. So like that. So, so this way, this is just an example that if we have to achieve particular goal, then we have to actually, take down the breakup of that particular strategy as to what we have to first, what we have to do, what all steps will take me to that particular goal. So if you feel that note taking is important, that is important, because it helps us refreshing our memory, memorize faster, and then reproduce it whenever the need is. So you should start it from today itself.
That was so nice. Thank you. This attitude of embracing our lives, opportunities, even apparently those things which appear to be not so positive or conducive for our development, and from there going on to create a path or process which can help create a success habit. This is such a great tip, not just for UPSC aspirants, but I think it's very useful for all of us in our lives. Thank you so much for sharing that tip. Over to Soumya for her questions.
Thank you, ma'am, for your very golden and honest tips, rather indeed. My question to you is in continuation of what you were speaking about, having a positive mindset while preparing for UPSC. So with the emphasis of regarding the people who are opting for self-preparation in the time when there is cutthroat competitions everywhere and number of institutions, building on this fact. So what would you and how would you advise them to, sustain an attitude like that for throughout the UPSC preparation? And as well as what is the feasibility of having a plan B? Like, does it affect your do or die sort of attitude, like I have to get it there, or does it get you like a safety net or like a reassurance? How can having a plan B affect on this particular mindset of an aspirant?
I'll answer your second question first, that having a plan B is, in my opinion, it's always a very good and safe mechanism to ensure that we are not very perturbed while preparing for the civil services. Because see, this is a tough exam, and any exam for that matter, if we are appearing for any, say, maybe some international competition or something, anything like that. So everywhere there is some limit in the number of successful candidates, and say if there is a vacancy for 300 people and 3 lakh of them are appearing, then definitely there is 3 lakh minus 300 would not be getting into that. So we should always, I mean, we must do whatever best we can to pursue any target. That is good. And for that, I just told you that we have to be genuine with our efforts, with our preparation and all. But then what if we don't get through it? Is it the end of my everything, my career, my life, my journey, my confidence? It's not like that. It is just an exam. Ultimately, if you see it from a distance, it is one of the exams. Life poses even major exams, major challenges, major tests, and it is a competition. It's okay. It is needed to get into some service, some profession, but then there are n number of professions, and no profession is high or low or like that. Everybody has every profession has its own role to play, and every person has its own role to play. And maybe if I get into civil services, I would do enormously good, maybe, but there might be a possibility that if I don't get into this and I get into some other profession, I may even do better. I mean, here comes the role of the destiny also, because we feel that there is a luck factor also, there is timing, there is this, that. Apart from my own contribution, apart from my own karma, there is a destiny part to whatever we do. So now to this, I mean, if you feel that, okay, is there, I would get those services, not this third will happen until we do efforts on our part. But if you feel that I can do everything, if I can get everything if I work on it, even that is not there. In my experience, in my opinion, in my mindset, I feel that the work is in my hands, I'll do it, but then the result of it, and every time I remember the karmanyeva adhikaraste message, that karma mein hi hamara adhikar hai, ma phaleshu kadachan, phal ke bare mein mat socho. But on the other hand, if we don't think about the phal or the outcome, the fruit of our karma, then how will we pursue our goal? Like if we don't fix the target. But then somehow I have taken this learning or this advice, this age-old advice in my own way, that the karma is in my hands, and then it is up to the gods to decide whether I am fit in one place, I am destined to be in one place, or maybe I'm better. So I feel that at times I'm ultra positive, I would say, that somehow I don't feel that any situation would, make my spirits low, or it would, make me lower down my morale. I don't think so. If something happens, if I get something, it was my destiny, fine. If I don't get it, here is not the end. I mean, there are so many other things. Maybe I'm better in some other place. Maybe God has some own other plans. So it is there throughout our life, and we can't take one thing, keep one thing at our hand, that okay, if not this, then there is an end to every other thing. We should not be so rigid with whatever is there. We should be rigid in doing our best. That is there in my hand. And there's a time frame also. But at times when there is a time to do something, maybe after a year or so, that is not the time to do that particular thing now. So we have to move forward. So I think plan B is very good, because it keeps you aloof from all these disturbances, from all this stress, because then you feel confident, okay, if not this, then I have this backup plan, and I'll do that. But till the time I have decided to pursue the plan A, then I have to be 101% into focusing and contributing to my plan A. So that's what, like, for myself, I had thought that if not in civil services, then I'll go into academics, I'll prepare for college exams and all. And this was my plan B. As far as your first question was concerned, this self preparation, I think that there are now this particular time, the present time, gives us so many opportunities, even through online sources also, and and by interacting with our friends, we can get access to resources, even what coachings offer, and whatever advices are there. There's so much of learning, but we have to be cautious. Like in self preparation, at times what happens is the syllabus of the UPSC is quite vast. I mean, the GS, the current affairs, this, that, and even our optionals, it is so vast that when we start doing things on our own, at times we get too much involved with whatever we are doing. Say for example, we have taken one subject, and we go into that particular subject to a major extent that might not be needed. So this is one thing of the caution, that we must know. While it is very important to know what is to be studied, it is even more important to know what not to study. So, I mean, how to save your time, how to maintain the balance. So at times coachings do help us in giving the entire spectrum in a short period of time with a short exposure. But then if we are cautious, I don't think that there are so many candidates who have cleared exams with self-preparation. So one need not be confused or disheartened that we are doing self-learning. You can definitely go ahead with the self-learning. In fact, at times you might be saving the time and the resources while you are opting for self-learning. So it depends upon person to person's condition. If you feel like I told you, one has to be genuine. If you feel that with self-learning, I can do a better if you feel that I'm not that much, disciplined myself, so maybe I should follow a regimen of coaching, then I think that might be a better option for you.
Ma'am, the question that I'm about to ask is extension of the first question, which I had asked. So nowadays, in all the competitive exams, pressure has become a regular feature, and UPSC has always been highly competitive. So this is specially for that. And this pressure is not just for the aspirants, but for their families as well. So since we already discussed how aspirants can handle that pressure, any tips on how their families should accommodate these aspirations and tackle the pressure at the same time?
So my advice to the family would be that you know your child and the potential that your child has. At times, family may not be knowing this, but if the child is confident, if you feel, you get the signals that child is doing well, and the aspirant, the candidate is genuinely aspiring for it. So we have to understand our own family member who is aspiring for a goal. So I think regular interaction with the family, then discussing your plans, and that may help them. Secondly, for UPSC aspirants, I would say that one should fix a time frame as well. Like, it's not only about the family. For ourselves also, we should feel that, okay, since I have done this, or my the academic background is this, so when I start preparing for the civil services, then how much time I would like to devote. Then And if in that time frame, if I don't get through, then what would be the next course of action? Because as I said earlier, that life cannot stand still at one place. Everything has its own time and its own utility. So if we feel that I'm sincere, I'm safer, it depends upon your number of attempts also. Even if you have your number of attempts, but if you feel that I would like to devote these many years for this preparation, then I think you should focus all your efforts to get completed within that time frame. And then you think that, okay, if you don't get through this, then you can go for your plan B. As I'm saying again and again, that we should not get attached to one particular thing for a permanency. You know, you can everything has its own time and its role to play in that time frame. Once that time is over, there might be something else lying ahead in front of you. So in my case, I decided that I would give 2 attempts. Maybe it was somehow I had 4 attempts with me, but then it came to my mind because I was doing my post graduation. I had completed that. I had got selected for JRF, Junior Research Fellowship, for my MPhil PhD program. But then at that time, I decided that I would give to my 2 best attempts. And what happened in my first attempt, I clear the final in the final results, my name was not there. So I gave the second the second attempt, the first attempt gave me a lot of experience as to where I'm standing, where I have to improve. And in my second attempt, I realized that this first attempt experience had given me this much of insight that I would definitely get through the exam even after, while I was giving my mains. So I realized that I'll get through, but then I also realized that I have not done my best. So what I felt that I might be landing into my second option. My first option was the choice of service was IAS, and second option was IPS. And there are, say, 17, 18 other services in the line. So I felt that I'll definitely get through, but I would land somewhere in IPS and I will not get IAS. But since I had made up my mind, somehow that prompted me throughout while I was giving my mains and my interview for the second year, that I'm not inclined to extend this timeline. So then I consulted my own heart in a way, and I thought that I opted out of the 18 to 20 services. I opted for 1 and 2. I mean, those were my topmost choices. So even if I get my second choice, I would like to go for it because that was something challenging. That is why I took as my second option, and both these services give you a lot of exposure for the field assignments. So and secondly, there was another thought that police itself for girls seems to be quite challenging. Even for the families, they are very concerned when the child is the girl opts for police services and or the defense services seemingly difficult choices. Then the family becomes very concerned. But then gradually, while I was preparing for my interview, and during that period, those 4 months from mains to interview and the final result, I realized that I find this service as challenging and I would actually like to do that. So at that time, my mother, my family members, they were saying that, okay, you, whatever is the result, you have to appear again for the IAS. Even this was my own dream earlier, that, okay, but at times even we don't know what would be there in IAS for me, what would be there in IPS for me. But then I tried to counter my own fear that being in police services, getting selected into police services was also, there was also a kind of fear in me that whether I would do well in this or not, whether the service would fit to me or not. But then I realized that, okay, this is the challenge that I would like to exercise in my life. I have to be afraid of this. The civil services is giving us an opportunity to be in police, and there is a training that, you know, helps you gain that strength, that what would I say, that competence to be in the service. So then I thought, okay, as there are other women in the service and there should be other women in the service, I should be one of them. And it's okay, it was one of the best choices. So then I did not give my third year exam. So that was, I think, there my family, though they were not agreeing to my judgment, but then finally my father said that, okay, this is my advice, but if you have taken it as your decision, I'm there with you. So this kind of confidence family gives you, and family should give you, if we find that our child is doing well and taking a decision based on her own choice or own consultation with the heart, and going ahead to pursue a career of her dream. And once we let the child decide as per their own aspirations, then I don't think the child can blame you for any choices in life. So what happens mostly in Indian society, my mother told me to marry this person, my father told me to get into this service, and then for the entire life we keep on blaming my mother and my father, that because of you I am here, because of you I didn't want to pursue this, but you forced me to do this. I mean, there's no point doing all this. I mean, for the child, for the person, and for the family, they'll always be in trouble if we don't follow our heart. So it is, I think it is for us to understand, for everyone, the aspirant oneself and the child also, and the family also, that if we allow, because we are, adult, we are youth. So if the family allows the youth to follow the choice of their own liking, their own calling, I think there would not be regrets later on in life. And I think that should be the ideal way.
Ma'am, the question which I want to ask is the extension of what Soumya asked earlier about Plan B. So there are some instances when students could not get the position they wanted. So what do you suggest? How do we come to peace with the altered reality of one's aspiration and the outcome of our efforts to adjust and accept and hopefully justify the post with all our potential?
See, this is a very interesting question. So first of all, I would say that we have to make 100% effort. There's no doubt about it. In fact, 101% effort. There's no doubt about it. Because then, so that we don't have time later on to regret that we would have done better, we would have prepared better. So this regret should not be there. So once you are preparing for something, you have to give your 100% to it. So that even if you don't get the desired outcome, you should not be in a position that I should have done better, because you know in your heart that you did your best. And despite of doing that best, if something has come in my way, maybe my destiny is there, maybe this is a better option, maybe I would not have done good in that particular stream, maybe there's something lying ahead for me in this particular stream, to actualize my potential. Like Vidhi said initially, that I want to realize my potential, I want to realize my destiny as per her aspirations. So what is this realizing my destiny? I'm doing best in one thing, but if I don't get that particular thing in that time frame, which I feel that I have reached easily well for myself, then there might be something more. There might be something very, very interesting, very mesmerizing, very challenging for myself. That might be very adventurous for me, like something unknown, something just came and I moved ahead. So in every situation, I have to give my 100%. Even if you are in a daughter's role, you have to give your 100% even in your daughter's role. It's not just about your career, in a role of the wife, in role of the mother, in role of a society person, in role of any profession. If you join railways, if you join, say, law as an advocate, if you join as a judicial service member, I mean, you have to be best and you have to give your 100%. Life is not one static thing, it's a dynamic thing. It keeps on changing, and every situation gives you an opportunity to express yourself in the best possible manner. So you have to do this even while you get up in the morning. For your own self, there is an opportunity to contribute something for yourself, to express yourself in to achieve something beautiful, to achieve something that you aspire for, like in meditation, you know, like in doing yoga, like in pursuing anything for your physical fitness, like being disciplined, like being healthy. Even in the those very small choices of my life, like even like whether to drink water or not. So you have to give your 100%. If you feel that I have opted this for myself, if you feel that, okay, maybe there's some problem in life, you meet with some accident and you are bedridden for say for example for a month or so. So then even during that time, I mean, it's okay. It's now, I thought to maybe go for giving an exam, and I met with an accident. I couldn't give the exam, and I'm in bed for 1 month now. So what to do? Should I spend all this time crying and thinking what would have happened if I had given that exam? I mean, this accident was not because of my fault. It just came and happened. So how to maintain my, as I said, that positive mindset and a happy mindset, and accommodating with your altered reality, like you're in the bed now, it's your reality. So you have to, I mean, you can't let this time waste, even if you are in a hospital, even if you are in a very crisis situation, you can't, because this is your life. Whatever is coming in front of you, it is your life. It's not like if I'm in a park, then only it's my life. If I'm in a hospital, that's also my life, right? So it is with me, it is happening with me. So whatever, every moment, whatever is happening with me, this is my life, and I'm responsible as to how I make it or break it, use it or waste it. Or even in a crisis situation, if I come out with a constructive result, it's my choice. So something is happening, it may be part of the destiny, but what is my reaction to it, how I take it further, and what constructive outcome I can bring out of even this crisis situation. It is in my hand. So whatever is in my hand, I can do it. So I mean, it has to be taken lightly, I feel, because every day, every time, every moment, something dynamic is happening, and we have to be, prepared for whatever is coming in front of me.